Several weeks ago, I was made aware of a video produced by a flat earther using a Mavic drone to argue his point for flat earth. Now, when I watched that video, I saw immediately how he had cheated and how he had fooled his very gullible followers. What I'm going to do in this video is show you how the drone works, some of the systems it uses, and how this flat earther was able to easily deceive his own followers. So let's take a brief look at his video. Firstly, he shows the controller for the drone, which indicates the drone is experiencing magnetic interference. He shows the drone in attitude mode. Now, at no point during the actual flight do we see this part of the controller. So when he takes off, we really don't know what mode the drone is in. Significantly, he takes off from a light-coloured pad that is surrounded by grass. There is a very distinct contrast between the colour of the pad and the surrounding grass, and that is significant when you understand how these drones can maintain their position. What he then does is show us a time-lapse of the drone flying, and you can see very clearly it is constantly making corrections to remain in one position directly over that takeoff pad. Now, during the flight, the actual controller for the drone is in the bottom right part of the frame, but as I mentioned, you cannot see what mode it is in. Anyone that has any experience with these drones can tell right away that this drone is not in attitude mode by these constant corrections being made. So the flat earther then claims because the drone did not drift, the Earth must not be rotating. This demonstrates a fundamental lack of understanding of reference frames and also basic physics. What I'm going to show you in my video is that in true attitude mode, the drone will not maintain a steady position. It will absolutely drift. And what we can also see is that these drones are capable of switching mode automatically after takeoff out of attitude mode and into a position holding mode. I will show you that demonstration as well. Now, Where's Wally has already made a response to this video. I'll post a link in the description below. It's well worth watching. And what I'm going to do now is just give you a brief overview of some of the modes that drones are capable of. So we'll take a look at some of the flight modes that are available with modern drones, and in particular attitude mode. Attitude mode is the most relevant to this video. Most drones these days are equipped with GPS, and that allows them to hold a position in the sky when no control inputs are being made. This is a Mavic Pro and it has a GPS. One of the modes we can fly in is GPS mode. In GPS mode, the drone will self-level and hold a position in the sky when there are no control inputs. So if I were to apply left roll, the drone will move like that and move sideways. When I release the control stick, it will automatically self-level and hold a single position with the aid of the GPS. When we switch to attitude mode, the drone still has the self-level capability. So when you release the sticks, it will return to a level attitude. If I push forward, the drone will move forward. When you release the stick, it will return to a level attitude. The difference in attitude mode is that there is no GPS position holding. So the drone will drift with any light breeze or even due to very slight imbalances in the weight of the drone itself. In attitude mode, it will self-level, it won't hold its position, so it will always drift in attitude mode. One of the modes that is not generally available in these Mavic drones is manual mode. In manual mode, you don't have any self-level capability or position holding, and that means if you roll the drone to 45 degrees bank and release the control stick, it will remain at that attitude. This means it requires a lot more attention from the pilot, as every control input needs to be corrected by the pilot. There is no self-level capability. This is not a mode that is really of any benefit to somebody trying to fly and film, because they spend more time just flying the drone than focusing on the shots, and that is why these Mavic drones generally won't have that capability. If you're flying an aerobatic style drone, then absolutely manual mode is the way to go. So clearly for GPS mode, you need to have GPS reception. If you don't have that, the drone will default back to attitude mode, maintaining the self-level capability, but not the position holding. In my years of experience operating these Mavic Pros around the world, I have never been anywhere where I did not have full GPS reception. I've flown them in numerous countries: Australia, in the outback where there was no cellular phone service, in New Zealand, in the USA, Canada, China, Italy, France, Germany, the UK, and even in the Maldives. Everywhere I try to fly this drone, it has perfect GPS reception. Now clearly, that is when you're flying outdoors. When you're flying inside a building, you may not always have perfect GPS reception. Now DJI introduced a second system of position holding to their drones years ago. And this is a visual positioning system where the drone has a number of sensors underneath capable of identifying the contrast of the ground it is flying above. And using that contrast, it can then make position holding adjustments. So this Mavic Pro drone, in addition to GPS, which lets it hold position outdoors, has a visual positioning system. Now it only works up to a certain altitude, and you have to be quite low for it to work, but it allows you to hover the drone very accurately, even indoors. It depends a lot on the contrast of the ground you're flying over, but generally it works extremely well. Outdoors, it works in combination with the GPS. So when you take off at low altitude, it's using a combination of GPS and the visual positioning system. As you get higher and it loses the surface detail, it's relying more on the GPS. The visual positioning system and the GPS are two systems in this Mavic drone that allows it to hold position. Even with the vision positioning system, the drone still may default into an attitude mode. And one reason for that could be magnetic interference that is disrupting the compass in the drone. Also, when it's on the ground, you may not have sufficient light under the visual positioning system to give it the contrast that it needs. So when it's on the ground, it could well be indicating attitude mode if you're indoors or you don't have good GPS reception. As soon as you become airborne, it's going to switch to opti mode, which means it's relying on the vision positioning system, even if it doesn't have GPS. And I'm going to demonstrate that actually occurring later in this video. So remember, the flat earther only shows us his controller when the drone is on the ground. During the entire flight, we never see what the indications are right here. It is attitude mode, but we don't know what mode it is in when it is flying. And as I will show you with my own drone, it can automatically switch from attitude mode to one of the position keeping modes, such as opti, using the vision positioning system. Once the drone becomes airborne, it will do that automatically. What we do know is that in his time lapse, we can absolutely see the drone making corrections. And when you see my drones flying in true attitude mode, there will be no corrections like this. So here is my Mavic Pro, and we're currently 4 stories underground, so clearly there is no GPS reception. You can see the red and yellow flashing light, which indicates magnetic interference because the drone is on the ground on concrete that has steel reinforcement. The app and the controller shows that the drone is in attitude mode. And that means it has no ability to hold position. It does not have GPS, and while it's on the ground, the visual positioning sensors don't see enough of the ground to hold position. But that will change when we take off. As soon as I get a few inches off the ground, it will switch to optical mode, and it will be able to hold its position just fine based on the contrast of details on the ground. Let's do that.
Take off.
Now you can see what's happened. That red and yellow flashing light has disappeared. It is now a green light, which means it is holding its position just fine. It is now in Opti mode, using the visual positioning sensors to hold position. I could put the controller on the ground and do a time lapse of that drone for 20 minutes and it's not going to move. It is holding its position with the visual positioning sensors. Even though it was showing attitude mode when it was on the ground. Let's land. Okay, and it's gone back into attitude mode again. While it was flying, it was not in attitude mode. So let's see what happens when I turn off the vision positioning system. Turning it off, it gives you a warning. It's now off. Now the problem here is I'm holding a camera with one hand. I really need both hands to fly the drone. So what's going to happen is as soon as I take off, it will begin drifting. What I'll do is I'll just let it go enough so that you can see that it is drifting, and then I will land.
Take off.
Still in attitude mode. See how it's drifting straight away? And it had no idea of its altitude because it could not determine its position above the ground. It uses the visual positioning system to do that too. Let's try that again. Put it a bit further forward. And we'll start.
Take off.
It's not easy doing this with one hand, but you get the idea. So drifting immediately. You can see there's no chance of it holding its position without either the GPS or the vision positioning system. So we can see very clearly what likely happened in the Flat Earther's video. As soon as his drone became airborne, it switched to Opti mode, where it was able to hold a very accurate position over the takeoff pad. The contrast between this light-coloured pad and the surrounding grass is perfect for the vision positioning system. I challenge this Flat Earther to repeat his experiment indoors with the vision positioning system turned off and the drone controller in view at all times. He won't do that because he knows the drone will drift and it will crash. Let's take a look at some other drones in attitude mode. You'll see that they always drift once you switch out of GPS mode. So these are the two drones that I'll use for the demonstration today. The first is a DJI Inspire, which has attitude mode, and the other one is a kit build, which I had long before I bought the Inspire, and that was used mainly just to test different motors and ESC combinations, but that also has an attitude mode. I'm going to fly the drones with those buildings and the crane in the background as a reference so that you can see when they are drifting or when they are holding position. I won't get too close to the crane. Most of the operators are pretty good guys, but occasionally you do meet a cranky one.
The poor cranky the crane never gets a nap. He never gets to sleep early. He works all the time. And his only company are the gulls that settle on his arm. So Cranky is always cranky.
So you can see there in the DJI drone that it is in P GPS mode and has 17 satellites. I can flick it to attitude mode and you'll get the corresponding indication now showing attitude mode. So what I'm going to do is put the drone into a hover in GPS mode and then switch to attitude mode and you'll see it drift. So there is the Inspire. As you can see, it is hovering nicely in GPS mode, maintaining its position. That is the controller. Now what I'm going to do is switch to attitude mode. It's currently in GPS mode, switching to attitude mode. And you notice that right away, the drone starts drifting. In attitude mode, it cannot hold its position. So any slight breeze will cause it to drift. Pop it back into GPS mode and we can bring it back in front of us. And again, in GPS mode, it's holding its position nicely. One more time, into attitude mode. The drone immediately begins to drift. And to stop that drift, I could either take manual control or just pop it back into GPS mode. We'll bring it back and land. One of the great things about this drone is the way the arms move up to get the motors out of the way of the camera. And when you're landing, it automatically senses that you're getting close to the ground and will lower the arms. So I'll now try the same thing with the other drone. The motors are powered up and it is in GPS mode. We can switch to attitude mode.
Descending attitude mode.
Or back to GPS mode. So I'll take off in GPS mode.
Climbing.
And there it is, just hovering. And maintaining its position nicely in GPS mode. Let's go a little higher. So again, holding its position nicely in GPS mode. And what I'm going to do now is switch to attitude mode.
11 minutes. Attitude mode.
Now in attitude mode, it will begin to drift. There's the controller and drone both in view, and you can see it is clearly drifting away, not holding its position at all. We can put it back into GPS mode and it will pause the drifting and hold its position again. Move it in front of us and I'll repeat that demonstration. I've got a big audience today. So there it is, holding position in GPS mode, switching to attitude mode. And it's drifting away. So in attitude mode, it certainly will not hold its own position. Okay, so obviously that drone was quite popular. There's a bit of a crowd. Hello everybody. Okay, so we just powered up the drone and Emma's going to do the takeoff.
Please check it on the map.
Well done, darling. That's just fantastic. Okay, good job. Go forward just a little bit. And now we want to land. That's really good. Do you like it? Do you like being a pilot? Okay, stop there. Stop there. You need to go left a little bit because you're too close to... That's the way. Look at that. Okay, land. More. Okay.